Yes, how we doing, everybody? John Denton here, the king of YouTube reactions. It has been a month since Travis Scott dropped Utopia. Time for the album to really sink in, for us to have lived with the record for a little bit. And therefore, it is time to go through track by track for a tier list ranking and then give my overall score for the album at the end of the video. If you're new around here, hit subscribe. If you haven't watched the reaction, get on it after this video and let's do it. Track by track. Let's go. Okay, then up first is Hyena, which is a really impactful opening. After that slightly strange opening where it almost sounds like we're going down a really deep psychedelic prog route, those drums kick in, it lifts the album to another place. I think Travis is rapping excellently throughout this album. Now, when I say that lyrically, not so much. There's obviously a few rough lyrics on here. That's not something I expect from him as an artist, but there's no doubt on quite a few of these tracks, he's really spitting. You know, we expect him to be kind of auto-tune singing a lot of time, but he's definitely sort of re-establishing himself as a rapper on this album. Yeah, I love the kind of snarling bass that accompanies this song. And I like the weirdness of this track. You know, if you're expecting something similar to Rodeo, this immediately takes you to another place. And I think that works. I fucking love Hyena. It's a track that as soon as the album comes on, I know I'm in for a good time throughout. So Hyena for me is an A standard track. All right then, Thank God up next. On first listen, I liked it. On future listens, I absolutely love it. The little melody at the opening, very reminiscent of Goosebumps, but the song goes in a slightly different direction. Now we have those amazing Mike Dean synths coming in fairly early on in the track, and then it switches to those beautiful strings and this different percussion pattern for the back half of the track. I do think it's excellent. I don't think it's quite on the level of Hyena. Tough one. It's a tough one. I'm going to put it in B. I'm going to put it in B for now. All right then, up next, Modern Jam, which is a really interesting track. When I first heard it, if you go back and watch the reaction, I was like, there's something here. There's something magic here. The fact that Travis Scott decided to do like a super old school type of beat in many ways, obviously switches up throughout the song. A really old school flow pattern. I mean, super old school, like almost 80s hip hop. Really stands out from anything else that he's ever done. What else I like about this track is Tizo Touchdown, an artist who on the first listen I was like, is that Andre 3K? And then it obviously isn't as the track goes on. It's made everybody very excited for what Tizo's going to do on his debut album, which is out in a couple of weeks. What's really interesting as well, you can listen carefully, you can actually hear the stuff that's in his head jingling down the microphone, which I guess is going to be something that's in all of his tracks unless he decides to take that stuff out. How does he sleep, by the way? Anyway, on future listens, I don't know if this has quite gone on to be the classic that I thought that it would, but there's no doubt in my mind, I like how curious, how interesting, and how different it is from the rest of Travis's catalogue. And one thing about this album, it doesn't have the same kind of thematic through line as an Astroworld, but it jumps from style to style in a really interesting way that kind of always keeps you on your toes. For me, Modern Jam is a B. I thought it's these last two tracks, I mean, Modern Jam I'm more comfortable putting in B, but I think Thank God's borderline. I could have just done more tiers. It's my own list. Now, My Eyes is an interesting one. On first listen, I wasn't too keen, but then Sampha does come in. Looking forward to the new Sampha record, which appears to be on the way soon. Not a lot of people talking about that single that he put out recently, which I really like. It's one of those songs that if you're drifting off to a Travis Scott album, if you're in that mood to drift off to music, it fits in that mode perfectly. But after three quite impactful songs, especially Hyena and Modern Jam, which really are quite sort of loud and get you awake, it's a strange song to come in there in terms of sequencing. But again, Utopia jumping between styles and moods quite erratically in a way that I think works by the time you get to the end of the album. There's another gentle song later in the album which I prefer to My Eyes, but the more that I've listened to the project, we're probably, you know, on over 20 listens through now on this project. It has grown on me massively. I wasn't 100% sure on first listen, but right now I'm going to put it in A. I reserve the right to drop it down at some point. Now, God's Country is a really interesting one. Obviously, the instrumental is weird, and I do appreciate weird. It is short and sweet as well, at just over 2 minutes. So it's not something that's outstays its welcome. I think if the track had been longer, it would have been a bit too much. That being said, is it a track that I'm going and playing on its own as its own track? Am I putting it on a playlist on its own? No, but as a part of the album to again create that kind of erratic mood, I think it works really well. However, in terms of a tier list, I'm probably going to put God's Country in C for now. I do reserve the right to change that at some point. I do think it has a place on the album. I do think it does a great job for what it is on the album. Even after a minute of that instrumental, and you know me, I like weird, I like experimental. Even after a minute of that instrumental, it does start to get a little bit boring and a little bit monotonous to me, and I'm just waiting for the next track to come on. I think that's going to be a controversial one in the comments, but a month in, that's where I'm at with the track. Now, Sirens up next. This is a track that has massively grown on me throughout the time that I've been listening to the album. I love the kind of almost 60s psychedelia rock that it starts with. It's very, very Yeezus, as a lot of this album is, with the screams. It breaks down in a really interesting way towards the back end of the track, with Mike Dean coming through to take the track to a different place, but also that almost like improvised repeated noise that comes in at the end of the track. And I just like the way Travis comes in on this track as well. At first, I didn't think this was going to be a standout from the project. On first listen, it definitely wasn't, especially as like a sort of palate cleanser after God's Country. And to take the whole album into the next kind of phase of what it is, I actually think Sirens is one of the best tracks on the album. How about that? I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, that goes into A for me. Meltdown featuring Drake, interesting one. Loved it at first. Went on to like it even more when I realised, which I didn't on first listen, I wish I had, but I didn't, how much of it was going at push, and we've not had anything back from that since. So, you know, still kind of holding out for that. Bit weak of Drake to come back so late. I mean, that was 2018. We're talking 5 years on, 5 years plus on, since the fucking hell, time. Since the original beef between the two, since the original battle between the two. Is Push going to fire back? Almost seems like he's not. This track kind of features Drake in almost, like I said at the time, a 21 Savage type of bag, where he's sounding quite aggressive, sounding quite nasty on the track, threatening. But Drake in threatening mode never really works for me. I just don't buy him as a threat. Listen, he may be well connected. Often artists of that caliber and that scope are. But, you know, you can always detect authenticity, can't you, in somebody's voice. And when it comes to Drake threatening violence, it just never really works for me. When it comes to Drake absolutely eviscerating somebody with penmanship, yeah, I'm there for it. I don't think Travis adds a great deal to this track towards the end. It feels like it's all about Drake. I think the track's okay, but it's actually not one of my favourites at all. And for that reason, it's going into C. Now, here we go. Fiend, featuring Playboi Carti. I know people love this track. I know it's proved very popular. I've tried to get into it, to be honest. The first part of the track where Playboi Carti's in his upper register and it has a bit of energy, I like. And I go every single time, actually it happens every single time I listen to this track, I go, no, actually I'm really getting into this tune. It's not really the Travis Scott sound that I want, but I am getting into it. And then when Playboi Carti goes into his verse, if you can call it that, sort of the fucking mumbled nonsense. You know I don't like the term mumble rap, but I mean he is just mumbling. It just does nothing for me, to be honest. And I'm just waiting for it to finish. And that's a shame. Because I know I'm going to get some shit in the comments for this one, but so be it. I don't think it's a good tune. I don't think it's trash, because it has enough in the early part. I'm sure it will go off in a mosh pit, but that's never really enough to really judge a song, because you can make things go on off in a mosh pit quite easily, I think. It's going into D for me. People are going to be mad, but so be it. Right, Del Resto, Echoes. Obviously, the first time you hear this and you hear Beyonce, you're like, wow, what is this album just going from place to place? And remember, the features weren't on there. They are now, but they weren't on there on first listen. Please, let's normalize that as well for at least the first weekend of release for albums, because it's so cool for people to experience that surprise when they go through first listen. And it's great for reaction videos as well, selfishly. So hearing Beyonce for the first time appear, I love it. I think, you know, obviously vocally she does an amazing job on the track, but I just don't think the track really goes anywhere. It's quite long. It's part of the album again, this whole sort of 3-track section. I'm just kind of waiting for it to finish. It feels like an offcut from Renaissance that wouldn't have made it on that album. It doesn't quite have the standard. It's decent, but again, I'm going to put it into C. I actually loved it at first, but the more I listen to it, the less I care about it. Here we go then. I know. I think this is my favourite track on the album. I absolutely love this track. I can't stop singing it. I love the melodies. I love how it reminds me of Drugs You Should Try It, which is one of my favourite Travis songs. And I just think his ear and his understanding of sound, tone, melody, structure in this track is pretty much flawless. It's one of the few tracks where he admits any vulnerability or any slight fallibility across his entire body of work, to be honest. I mean, I've heard those comments about Travis not having a personality but having an amazing ear. I actually don't disagree with that necessarily, but I don't think it's something that is a huge detriment to the album. And I definitely don't need Travis to be going more in depth. That's not the type of artist that he is, and I just don't think he really would work. Again, talking about authenticity, I think it would come across as corny. Here, just that small amount of fallibility, but still a little bit of toxicity, talking about him possibly being drunk, combined with the fantastic chorus. I just absolutely love this song. This is an S-tier Travis Scott song for me. It's my favourite song on the album. I can't stop listening to it. It's one I skip to if I'm listening to it first time, so I want to go back to. I know for me, an S-tier Travis Scott track. All right, Utopia Twins up next. By all sensible, rational ways of thinking, this shouldn't be a good song. It's dumb as shit. It starts out dumb as shit. I don't know what it is about it. Something to do with the combination of the instrumental, the ridiculous hook, the way each artist comes in on the instrumental but has their own energy. Listen, not enough people are talking about how hilarious Rob 49's verse is on this track. It's pure comedy. He shoots his shot so much that he's hurt his shoulder. He's stressing to Travis about these girls on a jet ski. A fucking stupid track. But I love it. I love it as a like counterpoint to the kind of somberness of I Know coming back into a real silliness. Yeah, Utopia Twins it's not quite an A because I can't justify an A for a track so essentially and existentially dumb, but I like it, man. Always happy for it to come back on. Always sounds great in the car. Is a B for me. Circus Maximus with its black skinhead drums, which are kind of like Beautiful People, Marilyn Manson drums, is an excellent track. And I think that it is taken to another level by The Weeknd, and you can call me biased, and I am. But I don't think it's quite on the level of the other collabs between the two. You know, we're talking a Pray for Love. We're talking about Wake Up. I don't think it's on the level of those tracks. It's very good. It has a real energy to it. I enjoy it a lot. But on multiple listens, I don't know if it's really stood the test of time for me to be anything other than a B. Keen on your thoughts on that one, to be honest. Now, Parasail kind of has that like Astro Thunder, small interlude but doing something special vibe. It is not on the level of Astro Thunder. That is a fucking masterpiece. But again, I think as a sort of sequence breaker, as something to take you again into the next phase of the album, it does its job well. Always amazing to hear the GOAT, Dave Chappelle on anything. Young Lean on there as well, which is a nice crossover. I think actually their audiences have a huge crossover, despite them being from very different walks of life and very different parts of the world. Talking about Travis and Young Lean, not necessarily Dave Chappelle and Young Lean. I think that the album is much better for having Parasail on it, despite the fact it's not a track that you would go and choose straight away. It's not a track that you jump to put on. I think Parasail is sort of between B and C. I put it in C, just to be fair. Nah, I put it in B. Nah, I like it. I put it in B. It's better than God's Country. I prefer it to Meltdown. Resto in C is harsh, actually. See, this is what I said. I reserve the right to go back. I'm just looking at what I've done here, and I'm thinking this is looking a little harsh for the album. I think I'm going to put Circus in A, and I think I'm going to put Del Resto in B. I'm more comfortable with that. The album should be leaning higher in the tier. Skits up next with Thug, obviously the longest track on the album, and I love the rhythm, the pocket that Travis finds on this track, but I don't know if it quite sustains its full 6-minute length to be considered a classic. I love the fact that Thug's still out here connecting with people, still able to be on people's albums, and hopefully he's able to get out and live his life again soon. It's a funny one. Like, I'm always happy for it to come on, but by the time it gets to the end, I'm ready for the next track. It's a B. It's still a fucking good track, but I think at 4 minutes, it could have been an A. Now, Lost Forever with Westside Gunn, I love the fact that these two collabed. I love the fact that the Griselda crew are getting more and more connected with other people. And weirdly, despite of the three, if I'm to listen to them as their own artists, of the three, if we're talking Benny, we're talking Conway, and we're talking Westside Gunn, I'd probably label Westside Gunn as the least favourite of mine as a rapper, because his voice is so unusual, and because he has this like rare, I mean, they all have incredible self-belief and confidence, but Westside Gunn has this rare self-belief that you talk about authenticity once again. It's there in everything that he says. This is a guy who's authentically street, but he's also a guy who's authentically into art and fashion and culture and luxury. And also a guy that's authentically massively into professional wrestling. And you've got to admire somebody who's just living that true to who they are and carrying themselves in that way. Plus with the incredibly unusual voice. I really like this track. I like the fact that it exists, and it doesn't, again, unlike the previous track, it doesn't outstay its welcome at 2 minutes 40. I think it's an A track. And also you can't get away from the fact that with the hidden features, even though there was big rumors of this track, when you first heard that familiar West Side sound, yeah, it was a fucking moment. Talking of moments, the end of Love with Cuddy. When Cuddy comes in, we thought the Scots as a project was over. It probably still is. It doesn't seem like it's going to be happening. But I think that this took the song to another level. Thoroughly decent track. Not really spoken about. Not one of the most impactful tracks on the album. And not something that will probably stand the test of time as a classic collab between the two, or a classic collab overall compared to some of the others on this album. Yeah, really, really strong track. Just to keep the album moving into the final stretch. It's a B for me. Okay, into the final 3 tracks, and obviously we have K-pop, which I think if somebody came up and said K-pop was the weakest track on Utopia, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with them, or at least I'd understand where they were coming from. But I think strangely, as part of the project, it does something. It's very different to the rest of the album. We were slightly worried when it came out that the whole album was going to sound like this, and obviously it doesn't. But weirdly, within the confines of the album, I actually quite like K-pop. Now, does that mean it's going to be in the upper half of this tier list that I'm doing? Realistically, probably not. But then again, I'm not skipping it at 3 minutes. I think Bad Bunny does an excellent job on it. I think The Weeknd takes it to another level. But, you know, we're talking about the best Weeknd and Travis Scott collabs. This is probably the weakest of all of them. It may have been one of those situations where if it had been not a single and we didn't know the features, it could have elevated to another level again. But I like it. I don't love it. For me, it can't be anything higher than a C. Okay, the album ends strong. We know this. Telekinesis featuring SZA and Future. I think SZA does an incredible job on this track. I think the production, the instrumentation, the arrangement on this track is just beautiful. I think Future does an amazing job on this track. I mean, Future rarely misses as a feature artist. For me, I just love the way this album ends. Obviously, it is a long track, but it's one to kind of soak yourself into, like the best Travis Scott tunes. Even though it's a long project, and I'd imagine there are a lot of people who are listening to the first half, the first 2/3 of this album a lot and not getting to these final tracks, just with the nature of album listening goes. These are songs that should be spoken about and should be enjoyed for what they are. Telekinesis, for me, is an A, bordering on S tier track. I'm going to put it in S. I think that's fair. I think if you were going to talk about the songs that really stand the test of time from Utopia, I think this has to be one of them. It shows what these artists can do when they collaborate, and it creates an amazing mood to finish the album, which is then cemented, which is then extended by Till Further Notice, featuring the phenomenal, the outstanding James Blake, who, I mean, talk about people never missing. You talk about an artist who can elevate almost anything that he's a part of. James Blake, I just think, does wonderful work here with Travis Scott in general here on this song. 21 Savage, I'm not too sure about on this track. I don't know if that necessarily works. Seems like a strange addition. I think this song could have really just done with, without him being on it. You know, I'm a fan, but I think it could have done with just allowing itself to soar, allowing itself just to be those beautiful harmonies between the two, whose voices work so well together. Go and listen to Mile High. If you haven't listened to that track, I'm sure you have. For me, Till Further Notice goes into A. I think maybe without 21, it could have gone into S. But for me, definitely one of the best tracks on the album. So let's go through it then. In S tier, we've got I Know and Telekinesis. Hyena, My Eyes, Siren, Circus Maximum, Lost Forever, Circus Maximus, Lost Forever, Until Further Notice into A. If you got an album with 2 S's and 6 A's, you're doing great work. There's no doubt about that. You've got Thank God, Modern Jam, Topia Twins, Parasail, Del Resto, Schizo, and Love in B. God's Country, Meltdown, and K-pop in C, and Fiend in D. Nothing gets it into the trash tier. And that, for me, makes Utopia from Travis Scott an 8 out of 10 record. I think that it's not quite of the same standard as Rodeo. I don't know if it's quite on the same level as Astroworld. We'll need probably a few more months to really get there, but I do think it has some standout, truly beautiful moments in those S and A tier songs. And I also think that when Travis eventually does take this on tour, looking like stadiums, I think a lot of these songs will take on a different feeling, a different meaning. That's what's happened to me with the tracks from Dawn FM, for example, which I like, but seeing them played live in the stadium and seeing what The Weeknd and Mike Dean have done to those tracks as live experiences have changed them quite a lot. So I think that will happen with some of these tracks as well. But overall, yeah, an 8 out of 10 for me. I'm not doing 0.5, so just going straight into the whole numbers. Really strong work from Travis Scott. For me, he massively delivered after such a hiatus. Let me know your thoughts on the project, on my tier list, and your favorite tracks down in the comments. If you are new around here, please do subscribe. We're on the road to 500,000, and I will see you on the next video. All right, peace.